In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to do an ISO 42001 compliant AI impact assessment to help manage societal and individual risk when deploying artificial intelligence systems. Now, for background, I'm Walter Haydock, the founder of Stackaware, and we've helped organizations like Elios Health and Scrut Automation get through ISO 42001 certification to help build trust with customers and demonstrate that they're using AI in a safe and effective manner. So to begin with, what exactly is an AI impact assessment? If you look at the ISO 42001 guidance, frankly, I think it's a little bit confusing. So according to clause 6.1.4, an AI impact assessment is a way to determine the potential consequences of an AI system deployment, intended use, and foreseeable misuse to individuals or groups of individuals, or both, and societies. Now, if you compare that to an AI risk assessment, according to clause 6.1.2, that's a way to assess the potential consequences to the organization, individuals, and societies that would result if identified risks materialize. So, unfortunately, I think it's a little unclear exactly what the difference is. The good news is Stackaware came up with a way to parse these two different concepts and make sure that the results are audit ready. So how do we deal with this challenge? At Stackaware, we assess AI at three different levels. We look at the organization, we look at the individual, and we look at societies. So for the organization, we do model, system, and risk assessments. And then for individuals and societies, we do model, system, impact, and risk assessments. So that's how they diverge, and I'll get into exactly what this looks like for a real-world AI system. Before we even get into an impact assessment, we need to look at the individual AI model in question, and that's where Stackaware AI model assessment comes into play. So we look at things like the algorithm type, optimization methods, tools used in development, and then we also look at the training data, quality, inherent bias, how it's been processed, things like that. That lines up nicely with ISO 42001 Annex A controls, as well as ISO 42005, which is specific to AI impact assessments, some of the requirements in that standard as well. To give you an example of exactly what this looks like, let's take a look at Google's Gemini 2 Flash model. So what we're doing here is looking at Stackaware's AI model system and impact assessment register, where we track the results of this type of analysis. So as you can see, we've looked at the algorithm types for the model, and we've also compared it against our AI governance standard. This is a set of criteria that specifies exactly what the requirements are for a given AI model based on its use case. There's a whole nother video on that where I get into detail on exactly what the AI governance standard is, so please check that out for details. But we go through line by line and evaluate all of these different characteristics of the AI model to make sure that it's within our AI governance standard. As you can see, we're going through optimization, tools used for development, we're going through provenance, categories of data, intended use, so on and so forth. You can grab this template for free. Check out the text in the description for the exact URL. Okay, now that we're done with the AI model assessment, we're going to look into the AI system assessment. This consists of evaluating a set of additional criteria that are laid out in ISO 42001 Annex A, as well as ISO 42005. So as you can see here, you're looking at complexity, intended purpose, things like reliability, data retention, data classifications processed. And these also align with the requirements from clause 6.1.4 for conducting an AI impact assessment. But this is a component part of the impact assessment that allows you to make an educated decision about the impacts to societies and individuals using these underlying characteristics of the AI system. Again, we'll go through an example here where we're looking at the AI system, which is Google's Workspace Business Standard, in which the model Gemini 2.0 Flash is operating. So for this specific system, we're going to look through the intended purpose and criticality. We're going to look through things like the complexity. We're going to look at reliability, observability, logging and monitoring, transparency, accountability, and human oversight. And we're going to go through line by line and make sure that these align with our AI governance standard. And if a specific criteria or specific aspect of the system doesn't meet the standard, then that creates a risk, which we'll talk about at the end of this video. Now we're getting into the meat of the AI impact assessment. According to ISO 42001, you need to have clear criteria when you're actually going to conduct one. And that can be based on things like the criticality and intended purpose, the complexity or automation of the system, or the sensitivity of the data processed. These are all reasonable things to take into account, and I would recommend having a clear threshold above which you will conduct these impact assessments. An example is for a healthcare company, you might say anything that touches or impacts protected health information warrants an AI impact assessment. Conversely, you could say we're just going to do impact assessments for all AI systems within the scope of our AI management system. It's up to you to decide, but develop a clear and defensible set of guidelines here. Assume that you've decided you are going to do an AI impact assessment. What do you evaluate? So here are a set of criteria that Stackaware has compiled from ISO 42001, 42005, from things like the European Union AI Act, and we've developed a consolidated list of requirements for items that you should check when you're doing an AI impact assessment. Again, we'll go through an example here for Google Workspace Business Standard, where we will evaluate things like categories of people and groups affected, environmental sustainability impacts, economic and life opportunity impacts, and a variety of other criteria based on the impact assessment guide that I showed you previously. So here, there are no AI governance standard requirements because there's not necessarily a set of items for which you are checking the applicability or suitability of each system. You are doing a more broader scope analysis. Now, you should certainly compare these to your risk criteria, which I'll give you an example of. And if your impacts are exceeding or violating your risk criteria, then that would create a risk requiring treatment. What we're looking at here is an example risk criteria that you are required to establish by clause 6.1.1 of ISO 42001. And essentially, Stackaware recommends having a set of criteria for both organizational, individual, and societal levels above which we've determined that the risk is unacceptable. That's on top of any qualitative or quantitative system you might have in place already. So we'll look at the individual and societal level here, and we'll see that if the impact assessment reveals a system is exceeding the requirements here or violating any of these requirements, then that generates an unacceptable risk which requires treatment. So for example, if Google Workspace Business Standard was training on pirated content, then that would create a risk in a register that would require some sort of treatment to reduce the risk below this threshold. So there you have it. That's the exact process Stackaware uses to conduct AI impact assessments to meet ISO 42001 requirements and understand impacts to individuals and societies, as well as generate risks that you can track and treat as part of your artificial intelligence management system. If you need help building out an ISO 42001 compliant governance program, then Stackaware can do exactly that for you in 90 days or less. Please book a call using the first link in the description to learn more.